a girl in a situation where she thought she was going to electrocute a kitten to death, and she actually did it. All through negative suggestion. Also, calling up more associations and putting her in a mindset that is more akin to like a childlike state. But it's if you say don't do something, then it puts a subconscious sort of compulsion in your mind to actually do it. It's weird. But yeah, it's called negative suggestion, I think it's called. But yeah, the idea that celebrating sexuality, it's something that can free people up a hell of a lot more. I mean, think about it. I tell you what, if we want to get crude here, since we're talking about sex, let's just get crude here, okay? Aren't people more happy when they're getting laid on a regular basis? Aren't people more happy? Like say for example, if your life needs in general were met besides your sexual needs, right? So for example, if you're not getting laid, but everything else is okay, right? You're going to be miserable, more likely to be miserable, right? But, so if everything else is handled, then that's a need that is not being met. Because obviously, it's not, it's not on the ground level of basic, fundamental human needs, but, it is still a human need, right? And don't you think if sexuality were to be celebrated and thus not hidden all the time, then don't you think people would be less inclined to try and take sex when they want it because they feel teased, or that there's too much sexual selectivity on one side, so the other side has to resort to force? Yeah, I mean, this is why, even though woman on man rape is still a big problem, I'd say the majority, in general, the majority overall of rapes are done by men, right? So if sexuality were to be generally celebrated, and there were less sort of how should I say it, tendencies to for societies to be prudish, then don't you think people would have a better way of deciding who they should have sex with and when? And surely if we made that a more intelligent, if we adopted an intelligent approach to that kind of thing, then sex wouldn't get out of control. There wouldn't be there wouldn't be such thing as sex crime. I don't know, are human beings capable of that? Well, there are portions of the human population that, they live in, like these, they live like a naturist lifestyle, and women having their tits out all the time, and guess what? The men don't stare. Guess what it's called? It's called progressive desensitization, right? And especially even if you're raised into that sort of thing, you don't get progressively desensitized, because that is all you've known. And because obviously sex is a natural human drive. If you put things in the way of it, then it creates an urge to push further against that boundary. That's why, if you ask Joe Rogan, for example, who'd say, who are the dirtiest girls around? Ex-Catholic schoolgirls. because the thing is, he has a point, because they're more sexually repressed in general. But the idea in this film, coming back to the film, is that supposedly sex is obscene when war is not. You know, the act of creating life. You know, I mean, not just for, you know, for the act of procreation, but also the fact that sex is a pleasurable experience, and it can be appreciated for its aesthetic beauty. You know, I mean, obviously I'm biased because I'm heterosexual, but I find, you know, the average female body to be very beautiful. You know, I don't see it as something that should be covered up because it's dirty, it's sinful. You know, why think that way? I mean, surely you're denying your humanity on some huge level when you try to deny the impulses that are hardwired into you to ensure that you pass on your genes. You know? I mean, I myself, you know, that doesn't matter to me because I'm sterile, but, you know, it matters to those who can have kids. So yeah, I mean, why is war glorified over sex? I mean, surely the porn industry could be as lucrative as the war industry. Maybe not. But then again, in order to maintain a huge, massive porn industry, the internet would have to be curtailed in a lot of different ways when it comes to, like, you know, the free streaming sites. But also you'd have to make sure that a lot of people are sexually dissatisfied in their lives, thus they have to resort to using porn. You know, because I mean, if you want a large customer base, then you've got to tap into a huge inequity of human needs. You know, you've got to tap into a real point of human deprivation in order to get a good customer base. Sorry to reveal, like, immoral business practices, but no, I mean, I don't know. I'd say the war industry is one of the biggest industries on the planet. So it does serve corporate interests for us to glorify war, to have people cheering for war, obviously. To have people cheering for sex, that'll be a cool world, actually. Tell you what, just a quick intervention from a little tidbit of knowledge from self-development. When it comes to cheering, imagine your personality if every single time that you took a crap, the whole world cheered you on for the rest of your life. But anyway, coming back to the sex or war thing, obviously it makes more logical sense to promote healthy sexuality. Obviously, you know, not all porn is good. There's a lot of porn that is very harmful. But if done productively, I think, you know, like one of the things that I think I've said in one of my previous podcasts is I think that a genuine pornographic film illustrating two consenting adults that are genuinely in love, you know, that are not fucking, they're actually making love. I think that should just be used for sexual education. Just say, look, this is what two people who love each other do. Okay, this is what you should be aiming for. This is the kind of treatment that you should be aiming to treat that other person that you're having sex with. All right? Because if you think about it, a lot of the perversions are really distortions because a need wasn't being met somewhere. I mean, I think it was Marshall Rosenberg who said that, I'm probably going to butcher the quote, but what was it? I think all emotional states are a result of an unmet need, or something to that effect. But yeah, when you suppress it, it gets bad, and because I think some sexual perversions are healthy as long as you have like the boundaries there, but and have the boundaries respected, but there should be no regulation of it. It's an expression between two or more people, or one person, and as long as it isn't doing harm, then why not? Whose business is it? And it's no one's business besides the people that are involved. That's it. War, on the other hand, that affects us all. I don't think we should be glorifying that shit. So yeah, I agree with Larry Flint. But anyway, on with the next one. This is a film that I actually watched quite recently, and I really did appreciate for its moral message, and that's the film Ender's Game. And for those of you who not familiar with this film, essentially there's a kid called Ender, and he's basically been raised and educated in a society that's surviving from a supposed alien invasion. These aliens called the Formics, and now they're training up kids to think really, really fast and think really well, and be tacticians, as it were, to prevent mankind being slaughtered or whatever. And Ender himself, he is a true tactician. There's a scene where he gets cornered by a group of bullies in a classroom, and he knocks the bully down. And right there, because the thing is, I think he was in the situation where he was going to have to defend himself physically, so he was going to have to actually use physical force. So he did knock the bully down, and that should be where the situation ends, because you're down. Okay, fight's over. We've proven here that you've started to push me, and then I've just knocked you down. It's like, right, that's it. We call it quits. Draw, whatever. But no, he keeps kicking the kid. Because essentially the idea that this film promotes is basically a brute force preventative idea, where it's a bit like living down the street from a bully, right? And he's been bullying you for months and months. So the best thing to do is to go over to the bully's house one night and kill him. Because otherwise, how can you stop him from coming back? It's the idea of knocking them down to prevent further attacks and to ensure future victory, right? That's the idea that this film does put forward in its initial conveyance, but then there's the twist at the end, which because obviously as you guys know, if I'm talking about movies, I'm going to be giving spoilers. I don't care. Sorry for ruining a couple of films for you that I haven't seen. But yeah, the idea largely is the two different methodologies of dealing with the Formic situation, or the Formics situation. One of them is tactics, and the other one is ethics. Right? Now, obviously, through the main part of the program, where as he's being trained up, and they're going through like the simulations of the battles and working out how to actually do it and that sort of thing, they then go to the climax of the film is basically they're told you're just going to do one final simulation, and then you will be going out in the field, out to war. And they do the simulation, and the simulation is supposedly at the Formic's home world. And eventually they win the battle. They win the battle by destroying the planet, basically turning the planet into one big volcanic wasteland. Basically, you know what Venus looks like right now? Yeah, looks like that. Excuse me. But yeah, they then realise that it wasn't a simulation at all. It was actually for real. They were actually commanding real ships, and there were thousands of people on that ship that got sacrificed during the battle because, for one thing, Ender at one point in the battle decided to, abandon the manned ships for, keeping the drones orbiting around the main ship as a moving shield. And basically he sacrificed those, and he didn't think twice about it. For one thing, for two main reasons. One, it was a tactical decision, because there was a certain method that he had in mind. There were priorities that he had to consider, and thus he had to basically allow the I can't remember what the name of the ships that he had to sacrifice. Dreadnoughts, I think they were called, and they carried thousands of people. I think hundreds of thousands of people. But the unmanned drones, he kept those, right? They destroyed the planet, killed everyone. They realised it wasn't a simulation, and because the thing is, they had to do that, because otherwise, if they thought, we want you to just exterminate them, because all through the film, every now and then, Ender gives some indication to the fact that he is actually open to, really? They haven't attacked us in 50 years. Why are we taking the fight to them? They're not doing anything. Why are we launching a preemptive attack? Is it really necessary? Maybe there's another way to settle this. And as it turns out, the Formics were communicating telepathically with him, through a mind game on a tablet thing, and also through dreams as well. So there was that deception in order to gain the victory. And this is one parallel that we see in situations like executions, where there's I think there's two keys to turn or two buttons to press, so the accountability isn't completely squarely on one person. There's firing squads. I think at some point that one of the guns had a blank round, and they were each told that they could have the blank round, so they could tell themselves, oh no, it's not really me that's shooting him. This is kind of a same thing here, but the difference in this case is that they can't keep the secret for long, that it was actually real and not a simulation. But it's one thing, because the thing is, Ender, I think he's only something like 12 or 13 years old or something. He's a young kid, and he's been put in the position of commanding a fleet of warships to essentially destroy, completely neutralize an alien threat at its home world. And he realizes that, because the word that he uses when he realizes that that it was real, he uses the word genocide. Now that's a strong word, right? But it's actually true, because he's realised that he's just destroyed an entire race of beings for no real reason besides the idea that, no, we should attack them first, to prevent further incursions of violence. And that is one thing that, it's that pig-headedness that we can see in a lot of the military-industrial complex of this world that we live in right now. There's so much blockheadedness and just sheer paranoia in the notions of how we guard ourselves and how we assess the threats around us. It's going to take a different approach, and this film it presents also the compassionate approach, because in the mind game on his tablet and also in the dream, the Formics are communicating through him, and they're also using the symbolism of his sister Valentine. Now, throughout the film, I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, is Valentine not actually a human, but maybe a Formic in disguise or something? Because there's a lot of there seems to be a lot of congruence between the kind of values that Valentine gives Ender and the kind of values that are necessary to save the Formics. And pardon me. But yeah, that's the idea of the film, that what is better. Because as you watch it, the film propagandizes you into thinking that the Formics are just some enemy that needs to be exterminated. However, there's one thing that does allude to a change in this, is the fact that the film, for the vast majority of the film, we hear virtually nothing about what the Formics are. What kind of structure do they have, how they communicate, we even, the only times that we see what they actually look like is right at the end, and in part in the dream sequences that Ender has. So it tells you so little about the enemy that you sympathise the least with it, because you know the least about it. This is one of the things that makes villains and monsters in horror films and action films so scary. If we know less about them, then we can identify with them less, because there's less information that is likely to be relatable, and also because there's that unknown factor, right? When a film deliberately does, especially a sci-fi film, when it deliberately does that about an alien species, I'm thinking to myself, maybe there's another side to this story that it's going to have to tell later on, But yeah, just like with the problems that we face in this current society, Ender's Game finishes with a compassionate approach where Ender actually has to pay his penance and redeem himself for killing the vast majority of its race by transporting a queen to find a brand new home world for them. He will find them a new home, and that in of itself, the way the film ended, it's just screaming for a sequel. But yeah, I just thought I'd touch on that, where compassion is really the best tool, not preemptive violence. preemptive, the justification of the preemption itself, the preemptive act is the justification. The violence, no. The film, it sort of uses the preemptive, the idea of a preventative means through preemption, if preemption is even a word. It uses that as a fulcrum to sort of like solidify itself in, you can't question this logic now, can you? Because it does actually make logical sense. If you kill someone, it will prevent them from being able to kill you, but that still doesn't stop the fact that you killed someone, right? Violence to prevent further violence is still violence, right? So we need to keep that in mind. But moving on, here's the film The Dark Knight. Now this film, it contains, thanks largely to the Joker, the film does demonstrate a couple of moral dilemmas and thought experiments. The first one is with the character who's just about to reveal Bruce Wayne's true identity, like on live TV or whatever. The Joker calls in and basically says, if this guy is not dead in 60 minutes, I will blow up a hospital. Right? Now, if you're familiar with Gedanken experiments, you will recognise this as the trolley problem. Essentially, this is because there's a few variants on the trolley problem. The one I think this one is closest to is the Fat Man version of it, which goes as follows. Quote, a trolley is hurtling down a track towards 5 people. You are on a bridge under which it passes. You can stop it by putting something heavy in front of it. As it happens, there is a very fat man next to you. Your only way to stop the trolley is to push him over the bridge and onto the track, killing him to save 5. Should you proceed? Now, obviously that is it's a situation that I myself obviously I know what the logical choice is, right? Overall, it's better to sacrifice one to save the many. However, there's different circumstances where, I would most definitely not go for that option. Like with a lot of people, they are less likely to choose the sacrificing the one if that one is someone that they care about. So really, there needs to be situational ethics, applied onto this sort of thing, meaning that the situation needs to be considered on its own merits, and obviously in this scenario, there isn't time to consider, how much value do I place on this human being versus this human being? There's no time for that sort of thing. But then again, even in the Dark Knight, there is that element there that you can't do anything about it. I'd say really the only moral way to resolve the trolley problem is to stop the trolley with something else. There has to, surely it can't be that fatalistic that there really is no other way to stop the trolley than pushing the fat man in front of it. If it really is that dire, then I guess that really is the situation. But, obviously, the Dark Knight does sort of put in a little bit of leeway in there, because basically they have like 60 minutes to evacuate the hospitals, because he said, I'll blow up a hospital. He didn't say, I'll blow up a patient in a hospital, and I won't tell you which one. Because, that would be That would be even scarier. That would be a way to maintain the trolley problem in the truly unwinnable situation that it is.